No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. This is a special edition of Outspoken. Merry Christmas. So delighted you're with us on such a special day of the year. And because it is such a special day of the year, we are going to be revealing the Greatest Britons of 2024. It's all positive today with Father Calvin Robinson. So these Greatest Brits are chosen by you. Calvin and I have absolutely no idea who's in the top 10, so this is going to be a lot of fun. Little reminder, this Christmas Day, if you want to give me a gift of some form, just click and subscribe to our brand new independent news source. Turn on the notification bell, then you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Remember, the best way to support Outspoken is by subscribing on Substack. Then you get access to the uncancelled after show, which returns Monday to Friday in the new year, my exclusive reporting and columns, access to our live chats on the Substack app, and the chance to join a thriving community. Most importantly, it is a safe space free of censorship. Go on, you can sign up completely for free. I actually think it's a Christmas gift, not just to me, but to yourself too. But now, this Christmas Day, let's go. Father Calvin Robinson, Merry Christmas. You know, especially for you, I'm wearing my favourite ever Christmas jumper, my ABBA Christmas jumper.
Merry Christmas, Dan. I do know how much you love ABBA, so that means a lot. I wish I had a Christmas jumper with me as well, but I left them all back in the UK. But yeah. Merry Christmas.
Probably weather-wise, that makes sense in America. They don't really do the whole Christmas jumper thing, do they?
Well, we're going to bring it in. We're going to bring it back.
So
Part of the reason I'm here is to colonize with these Christmas spirits.
Yes, indeed. Now, look, this is obviously, well, let me not put words into your mouth. Is this the most important day of the year for you?
Second most important day. The most important day is Easter. But after Easter, it's Christmas, because Christmas is when we learn of the nativity story, obviously, of the birth of Jesus Christ. And what's more important than that? So yeah, it's a very special time of year for all of us.
And Calvin, look, the reason I wanted to be with you today is because, of course, Christmas is such a special day, but for some folk it can be difficult too, right? Because if you've had issues with your family or your friends, or you're feeling a little bit lonely, so I'm hoping we can keep people a little bit of company, at least for a part of the day. But what's your message to people who might be struggling today for whatever reason?
There's a lot of trauma around this time of year. A lot of people have scars and memories, bad memories that they carry around at Christmas. And I myself had a family death at Christmas. And I think the part of the message of Christmas is that actually life does get difficult, but there's always hope. The whole point of December, the Advent period, is the hope of leading up to the birth of Jesus. And at Christmas, we celebrate that nativity story as a reminder that we're never, ever, ever on our own, and that God loved us so much that he gave us his only begotten son for us. And there's no greater love than sacrificing your only begotten son. And so it's like whatever suffering we go through, whatever trauma we carry, whatever sins we committed, none of it really matters if we repent and follow Jesus, because he's here for us, he loves us, and that's the story of Christmas, really and truly.
Do you worry, Calvin, that Christmas has been hijacked in some way now, that it's almost become too commercial?
No, I don't actually. I know it's something I should, but I think because it's so commercial, it's so big. Even secular atheists celebrate Christmas. It's this one time of year where pretty much everyone all around the world is celebrating together, and that means that we'll never ever forget Jesus Christ. We'll never ever forget his birthday. And Christians will always be able to celebrate it. Even in countries where Christianity is persecuted, there's still that feeling that there's something special happening this time of year. And in our homeland of the United Kingdom, where very little is Christian throughout the year, this period of the year, we're able to be a bit more cheesy, a bit more loving, a bit more wholesome in ways that we're rushing around the rat race, especially in London, all year. And then at Christmas, everything just slows down, and we're reminded that our core commandments are to love God and to love each other, to love our neighbor. And that's what we do, I believe. Whether people are ardently religious or not, this time of year, we love each other a bit more. And that's great.
So it's almost like, Calvin, it's your shop window. It's a way to remind people of the importance of Christianity, because we're meant to be a Christian country, Calvin, but
Yeah.
sometimes, and look, we've tracked it across the course of the year, and obviously we're being positive today, but sometimes it doesn't feel like we're a Christian country anymore.
I know they're doing everything they can to erode the Christian message from our nation. The values that grew our British Empire, they're trying to chip them away bit by bit. But then again, it comes back down to us, doesn't it? It comes back down to if we hold on to this, if we say, no, this is important, we're going to take a week off work as a country collectively to celebrate Christmas. And we're going to do a similar thing at Easter. And actually, even if it's just those 2 times a year, they can never truly rob us of our heritage, of our values, of our moral compass. And they can never really replace it with woke or with Islam or whatever they're trying to replace it with if we cling on to something that's more important than that.
Is Christmas a time for forgiveness? Calvin, do you think it's an important time where sometimes you can let bygones be bygones, especially when it comes to family members who might also be lonely or struggling for whatever reason?
That's a very good message and a very good reminder. Thank you, Dan. Yeah, I mean, forgiveness is one of the core Christian messages, and this is the time of the year that we can move past whatever bitterness we've been holding on to and try our best to forgive those that we love and even those that we don't love. Because if we don't forgive,
You
it's
do.
not them that we hurt, actually, it's ourselves. It's when we hold that bitterness in our heart, we get hard hearts, and that's not good for our soul. And so the whole reason that Christ says to forgive, not 7 times, not 7 times, 7 times, but 70 times, the whole purpose of that is to say, constantly forgive, shed all of that negativity, resentment, pass it all off onto him. He is justice. He will ensure that we are loved and that our neighbor is sees justice in the end. But our job is to pass all that off and give them love. And that doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean we forget the things that people have done to us or we let them do them to us again. It means we move past that and we don't carry it around as part of our identity. So yeah, Christmas is a good time to remember that. I like the Home Alone story. Home Alone is one of my favorite Christmas
Oh my
movies.
God, me
I mean,
too.
John Williams' soundtrack is outstanding. I can listen to that anytime. But I mean, it took a comedy movie and elevated it to another level. But that message of the neighbor, who hasn't seen his son, and there are so many families that are in that position that actually it goes on for so long that you forget why you're no longer talking to people. And then Christmas is a good excuse to put all that aside, give each other a phone call or give each other a message and say, how are you doing? I miss you.
Calvin, what about dealing with grief on Christmas Day? Because, look, I know for myself, I think so much about the family members that I've lost today. I think about my incredible childhood years with my two grandmas and my grandpa who were so close to me. And we had those key moments of the day. We would always sit down religiously to watch the Queen's Message. And growing up in New Zealand, Calvin, even though they were British, actually they had started to embrace to the New Zealand way of life. So sometimes we'd have a big roast, but other times we'd have a barbecue. But it can be really sad when you think about the people who are no longer with you on Christmas Day. Is it a matter of trying to think of those memories positively somehow?
I mean, it's a massive, massive blessing that you've had people in your life that you love so much that you mourn them and you grieve them when they're no longer with you, because not everyone has that, right? And I can relate to your story, Dan. My grandparents my maternal grandparents were very close to me. That they were like another set of parents, really. My mama and my granddad. And when we lost them, everything changed. The whole family structure changed. You know, we used to go around to their house for Christmas, and we used to spend lunches there and have the big roast with turkey and all the trimmings and the stuffing. And it's not the same anymore, and it does feel a bit emptier. But actually, I remind myself that I'm so blessed to have had those times in the first place, and I will always have them. They've shaped me into the person that I am. Those relationships that I had and those memories that I carry make me a better person. And so my mama and my granddad haven't actually died. I carry them with me. And I often actually hear myself saying things that I think my granddad would say. But it's like we are blessed with those people that loved us. We are blessed with the memories from the special times that we spent with them. And yes, it's a bit emptier, it's a bit sadder without them. But we remind ourselves that we are with them, they are with us, and we hope that they are looking down on us wherever they are in the afterlife.
Oh, and I think they most definitely are, actually. And there's just a little opportunity for me to just say thank you to my grandparents. That was John, my mum's dad, who fought in the army during World War II, and then Kathleen Wootton, although this was her during World War II, and she was part of the ATS, and that was really, really special for me. And then you've got my mum's mum, Sylvia Wheeler, who survived the Blitz, and she moved over to New Zealand as a 10-pound pom. Wasn't she absolutely beautiful? And then I never actually met, which is one of my great regrets, because he had died of cancer before I was born, but that's my dad's dad, Bill Wootton. And a lot of people say, I look a bit like him, actually. So I think of them a lot today. And then, of course, you have the blessings, don't you, of your younger relatives who become part of your lives. Because I think Christmas is such an important time for children, Calvin. And actually, what would you say to parents who are maybe thinking about, okay, because you know what it's like, kids think about Christmas to begin with in terms of presents, right? And receiving, and also Father Christmas and Santa Claus and all of that great stuff. Is there a way to sort of subtly introduce the message of Christmas, the Christian message of Christmas, so that it's not only simply about receiving gifts?
Yeah, there are so many good traditions that do that as well. In the lead up to Christmas, it's nice to have a little Bible story in the lead up to the 25th of December, so the kids get excited and you can build anticipation. You can still have the story of St. Nicholas and bringing presents, and giving presents to each other is a good thing because it's a reminder of our love. But I just want to specify to parents that don't put so much pressure on yourselves for the presents as well. I know so many parents that go into debt at Christmas. And yes, kids appreciate gifts, of course they do, but they appreciate the love that you give them all the more. You know, I can remember a few presents that I received as a child, but I more remember the environment that was created, and knowing that my mother, my father, my grandparents, and my sister, the relationships that we had with each other, the great times spending, playing Christmas games and eating Christmas lunch. It always comes down to the lunch with me, Dan. But the pressure that parents put on themselves, it shouldn't
No,
all be about the presents, but the presents are a good thing.
no, you're completely right. You're completely right. My mum sent me something the other day, actually, because she was sending a message to my sister saying, look, you don't have to worry about buying Ivy Dan really expensive gifts. That's my niece, because she's not going to remember that. And we did think back to our Christmas times. And actually, you are so right. What I remember is my grandpa chasing me around the house, the times that I spent going to the beach or going to the park with my mum and dad, and the big family gatherings, which is what I miss so much. And actually, that's what I remember rather than the presents. I actually don't know if I can remember one Christmas present that I received, but boy, the actual memories of the day itself are etched in my mind, including if I was going to church with, well, both my grandparents were very, very religious, actually, but
I mean, sorry, you give me all the best cues, because I should have said that by now. Go to church as well. A nice Christmas Day
yeah.
service. You can't beat it. Oh my gosh, the carols, the hymns, and of course the praise and worship
Yeah.
of our
Or
God.
Christmas
But
Eve
that
was lovely too, if people did it last night. And actually,
midnight
Calvin,
mass is the
isn't that a
best.
great thing? If someone is feeling lonely right now, and they are able to leave the house, go to church, right?
Yeah.
Because you're never lonely at church.
I love church at Christmas. It's my favorite time to be in church. This year I'm doing, I've got services or some kind of thing on every single day. It's a jam-packed week, but I love it because yeah, you're right. People come to church that haven't been to church in a long, long time, and they find not the magic's not the right word, but they find the ambience of the place, and it touches people's hearts. It raises their spirits, and it is about the worship, but it is also about the music, and it's about the people, and it's about the reminder that those walls within those buildings, those churches, are soaked in centuries of prayer, and you're just a part of it. And so it reminds you that collectively we're all part of that body of Christ. And there's something that's great about that because we're not reliant on our own experience, we're not reliant on our own life, however happy or miserable that might be. We're joined together in something that's bigger than us. And I think that's part of the message of why he came to earth, to give us that message that we're not alone. We are with him and in him, and he is in us.
Absolutely. And it's so uplifting, isn't it? That for a month you can enjoy your favorite carols, your favorite hymns, and be quite unashamed in that.
What's your favorite carol,
Oh,
Ben?
okay. So I'm not traditional, Calvin, as you know. So my favorite Christmas song is Merry Christmas, War is Over, John Lennon. And
Okay.
I actually this year came up with a really good idea. I was thinking, goodness, I've got to put this on a t-shirt, but we just never got around to it. But don't you think this year it's Merry Christmas, Woke is Over? Hopefully the wars too with Donald
That is,
Trump.
it's a shame you didn't get that done. That would have been great. Yeah.
I know, just had too much to do. But I thought that was actually a really good message. And Calvin, it's interesting looking back on 2024. This is the last chance we're going to have to speak this year. A huge one for you. Huge one for me too, but huge one for you because you made the move. And I know that was a really difficult decision in a lot of ways. And it was a decision that you received a lot of criticism for. You've been in America now for 6 months. How do you feel about your decision to go?
From the moment I got here, it made sense. Like in the lead up to moving, it was all quite stressful, and it was, is this the right thing to be doing, etc. But the moment I got here, it made sense. And actually, Dan, I'm so much happier because I feel like I'm doing my calling. I'm where I'm supposed to be with the people I'm supposed to be with, ministering to the church I'm supposed to be ministering to, in the part of the country that I'm supposed to be in. All of it just clicks in, and it's great when that happens. You know, when you have so much faith in God that you try to follow His path that He lays out for you, and it all falls into line. It's a wonderful feeling. So I am genuinely happy to be here, and I'm sad about what's going on back home, but home's not going anywhere. Right. And so for a time and a season, I'm glad to be in these United States.
And there'll be a lot of people, a lot more people who do leave the United Kingdom over the next couple of years. I know a lot of high profile people who are already thinking about it. I completely understand why there is a mixed view on that, of course, because if you feel like there is no escape route out of the country, then of course you want to do everything possible to fight for it. But I guess the point is people like you will still be fighting it from across the Atlantic because part of...
I think I've fought more since I left. I've been freer to say and tweet and create content and actually organize events more since I've been here than I was when I was in London. So, you know, it all makes sense eventually.
Yeah,
but yeah,
and
we can always fight.
Yeah, and sometimes life gets a little bit taken out of your hands as well, doesn't it? Because, I mean, goodness me, Calvin, if you thought of our 2023, which both involved us losing our jobs, being cancelled in absolutely ridiculous circumstances, there was a reason for us to look for something new in 2024. And I guess in different ways we've done this. And I just received it in the post. So I wanted to show you this amazing Christmas card that I received from one of our greats, Rebecca Jane, who has been a big supporter of the show since day one. And she's put lots of my highlights of the year, not just professionally, but also personally as well. But I wanted to share with you the words that she wrote because they actually meant a lot to me. She said, "To our very fabulous Dan, congratulations on an incredible year of 2024. I'm proud to say they tried to cancel you. They failed just like I knew they would. Thank you for being so wonderful and always being one of my biggest supporters. I appreciate you more than you know. I hope you're proud of how far you've come. I certainly am. I hope the year of 2025 is simply wonderful and you continue to be the exceptional broadcaster you've always been. Forever cheering you on. Lots of love, RJ. And to me, Calvin, I was so grateful to receive that and open it on Christmas Day, because that summed up everything, I guess, that at the end of last year, where I was in a bad place because I had been silenced, I was legally unable to say a thing, I was legally unable to do the job that I love and speak to the people that I think are important to speak to. And so to be in this place at the end of 2024 actually feels like a great blessing to me and the best Christmas present ever. So I think it's an opportunity for me to just thank everyone, including you, Calvin, because you were, of course, on the very first edition of Outspoken, and actually even on Outspoken before Outspoken was a show, and you lost your job because you stood up for me. So it's all worked out. I think we can say now, right?
I knew that, you went through some stress. You went through, it was very difficult for you, but I knew you'd be where you are right now. Of course you would. Why wouldn't you be? They can't hold you back. You were always bigger than them, and it's great to see you flying. The success has been well earned.
Well, I think for me, the thing that I feel most grateful for actually is not being controlled. And that's a big thing. To be independent and to be free and to be owned by no one other than my audience is the biggest blessing. And so that's all I can do. Thank you so much for watching.
Dan, your audience have been amazing.
They have. Incredible.
They stuck with you through all of it.
Yes, they did. And they always knew what was going on was a witch hunt. And they always knew that the way that GB News reacted was completely ridiculous. But it's all positive today, Calvin, because it's Christmas. And in fact, I feel so positive. I feel so lucky to be where I am. And the other thing, Calvin, about going through a cancellation, and actually it was in Jordan Peterson's interview with Lawrence Fox, where he said that being cancelled, the only thing worse than being cancelled is receiving a terminal illness diagnosis. Now, weirdly, Calvin, I feel like I can be quite a good judge of that, because before I knew you, I received an incorrect terminal diagnosis. I was told that I had a particularly rare type of cancer that results in death in 95% of people within 5 years. And for 2 weeks, right, I lived with that diagnosis, which is a horrendous thing, but also quite an empowering thing to live through. And then to receive the gift of life again and to know that I had been misdiagnosed, although this particular growth is still tracked and everything, but it was an amazing thing. And I think what Jordan Peterson said was completely true, because that probably was the only period in my life that was worse than being cancelled. So I guess if you look at it positively, though, which is absolutely what I now do, you realize who is really there for you, who is going to be there when the times are tough, who is going to be there when the chips are down. And actually, I would rather have a much smaller group of people surrounding me than a whole load of people who were maybe only there because the times were good. Do you know what I mean? And so I think actually you can always look at a really negative experience in your life and find the positives from it. And I try and do that. But certainly I have found cancellation a positive experience, because now I look around me and I think, wow, you were there when I had nothing, and actually when I was facing hell. And so now I know that you're there for the right reasons. So for you, Calvin, and for everyone watching, huge thank you from the bottom of my heart. But it's time that we get on to what we're here to do, Calvin. I'm very excited about this because, a little bit of background, when I launched my show on GB News, and Calvin was one of the inaugural guests and was with me on the Superstar panel every single week, unless he was on holiday or away working, until my show was abruptly cancelled. And at the end of every show, I came up with a concept called Greatest Briton and Union Jackass. And every day, the Superstar panel would nominate the people in the UK or overseas, but usually we try to stick to Brits, who had either done something incredible that day or really annoyed them, and I would choose the winner. Now, when my show ended on GB News, they actually decided to keep the format and to continue using that feature at the end of the show. Personally, I found that a little bit weird, but whatever, that's up to them. That's their call. But Michael Cass, who is the brilliant guy who runs the Dan Wootton Tonight, that was what it used to be called, Freudian split, the Dan Wootton Outspoken Club on X, alongside with Karen and Anna and Darren, and they have been absolutely incredible, growing this club to be such a strong community of, I think, about 13,000 of us now. And please, if you're not a member, do go and follow. Every single day, they still run the original Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. So the viewers of Outspoken, the Outspoken community, nominate, and the winner is announced via X. So what they have done is put together for me to announce here with you, Calvin, the top 10 Greatest Britons of 2024, not as chosen by Calvin or I, but as chosen by the Outspoken family. And this is going to be the first time that we are aware of the results, so we have absolutely no idea who is going to be in this list. Calvin, shall we kick off?
Amazing. Let's do it.
Okay, at number 10, the 10th Greatest Briton of 2024. Let's take a look. Oh, wow. She's got to be there. J.K.
That
Rowling.
makes a lot of sense. She's been fighting the good fight solidly this year. There was that court case threat where Scotland tried to say, well, arrest anyone who says anything remotely offensive. And she was like, I'm going to say something offensive. Arrest me. But she's been on the trans battle. She's been pro-women constantly and taking hits left, right, and center from the very people she helped make. I mean, you can relate to that, Dan. But she's been there throughout the whole year. So, yeah, well done to her.
I think, in a way, she risked more than anyone. Now, I know it's very easy to say, Calvin, yeah, but she's a billionaire. What does she have to lose? But remember, she was a hero. She was beloved on both sides of the Atlantic, with the establishment, with the Hollywood woke brigade. She didn't have to do this, Calvin. And actually, she did risk so much, because she went from a hero to persona non grata in Hollywood almost overnight. Now, it is brilliant.
Yeah, I actually think...
Sorry, you go.
When people say, well, that person's a celebrity, they've got nothing to lose, or that person's rich, they've got... Actually, I think when you're rich or you're a celebrity, you've got even more to lose. I think J.K. Rowling had more to lose than Joe Bloggs sitting at home with an anonymous account saying a similar thing to her. She lost her status, she lost lots of friends, she lost her colleagues, and she potentially lost a lot of money through sticking to what she believes to be the truth. And so kudos to her for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. And the thing is, actually, at the end of the day, why I think I have the most respect for J.K. Rowling, and remember, the background of me and J.K. Rowling is we have never been friends. Actually, I very much disagreed with her on Brexit, for example, and where she stood politically on a lot of things. And there was even a little legal skirmish between the two of us, which I won't go into now because we've all been positive. But it doesn't matter, Calvin, because I put all of that to one side, because her sticking up for biological rights and the rights of women, and actually making the term TERF, I believe, a term of endearment and not some sort of egregious put down, is what her legacy will be, far more than the books that she wrote. Now, I know Harry Potter fans might disagree with that, but that's how I view it. So it doesn't matter what our differences were politically, because she was so bold with what she did for women's rights and standing up for women's rights. I also think, Calvin, there has been a bit of a 180 now in terms of Hollywood. So we've seen, I think it's HBO Max, Warner Brothers effectively say, we're backing J.K. Rowling. We need the Harry Potter franchise. She's heavily involved in the TV series. And even though those awful little brats who we just saw, Emma Watson, Rupert Grint, Daniel Radcliffe, who would be absolutely nothing without J.K. Rowling, even though they all turned on her, I would imagine the new actors in the new Harry Potter movie might keep their woke little opinions to themselves, right?
Yeah, and I think you're right. There's been a mood shift. Things are coming back around. Woke is dying, and people are jumping off that bandwagon. And so when people do realize, when they do that full 180, they'll realize that people who have been there all along weren't the bad guys, like J.K. Rowling. And so hopefully the new actors and the new studios will be like, oh, yeah, she had a point. And maybe we won't stab her in the back if we become successful. I mean, those original four, they're just vapid. I don't really hold anything against them. I don't think they have much of an opinion because I think they just go with the flow of whatever's happening around them. So then people like that aren't to blame, really and truly. But well done to JK for sticking by it and continuing. She could have jacked it all in years ago, but she's still going on with the franchise that people love.
100%. And by the way, I completely agree with you. I am not for a single second saying that those little brats shouldn't be able to say what they said and shouldn't be able to express it. Personally, I just wish they'd done it in a way where this is what I believe in. This is why I believe in the mutilation of children. And have that debate, have that discussion. But instead, they did it simply to trash J.K. Rowling because that's what the media expected of them. So if they wanted to have a debate, absolutely go for it. But what I didn't like is that it was so personalized. But this is the cancel culture world we live in. And as you say, I think because of the Trump election, there has been a big U-turn. Okay, let's move on. The 9th greatest Briton of 2024. Let's reveal who it is. Oh, now I've just been told, Calvin, it's actually not the man there.
Oh.
It is the party.
Okay.
It's Reform UK, which obviously had, in my opinion, a brilliant year in 2024. What do you think?
They got 5 MPs into Parliament. That's quite a success for a small party. They've been in the headlines a lot, not always for good reasons. I don't think they'd be in my top 10, but I can understand why people have selected them because people are looking for hope. People are looking for someone or something to cling to. And it seems like Reform is one of the few options available at the moment for people in the UK to get some political change. I don't think the Reform would bring about political change. You and I probably disagree on that, but at least people see there's a glimmer of hope there. And so the optimism is a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, look, Calvin, you know how I feel about Reform UK. I'm a critical friend, but if I look at the totality of the year, Reform UK has given me so much hope. I voted for them in July. I'm delighted that I did. I think the 5 MPs have absolutely punched above their weight. I think Rupert Lowe has come in and been an absolute star. I think Richard Tice has done some amazing things. Now, look, of course, there are things that I disagree with Reform on, and I've spoken about them infinitum over the past few weeks. But if I look at it in its totality, I feel like I would have no political hope if Reform UK was not in Parliament. And so for that, I am incredibly grateful. Okay, let's move on to number 8 in our countdown of the greatest Britons of 2024. This has been revealed to us for the first time. Oh, lovely. This is our former colleague, the great Mark Steyn. And what a difficult year he had, Calvin.
Oh, and he's had a difficult decade, Mark Steyn, but bless him for I mean, he's another one that's been vindicated because let's be honest, the reason he was cancelled was because he was speaking out against the vaccine at a time that it was seen as inappropriate to do so. It was there was a lot of pressure on companies like the one we used to work for not to have the conversations that he was having. And he was absolutely right to be having them. The vaccine injured should have a voice, and they're becoming more and more common now. And we're finding out that it's okay to say that this so-called vaccine, the jab, has been potentially more harmful than good. And he was one of the few people that was willing to have that conversation. So well done to Mark Steyn.
Of course, and he is still being the target of lawfare. The off-communists absolutely gunning for him because he wasn't prepared to just roll over. And they're coming for him for over £100,000. And thanks to the Outspoken family, luckily, we were able to raise the first tranche of money that was demanded of him, over £50,000. And Calvin, I'm very excited. I don't know if you are, but we're going to be on the Mark
We
Stein
are.
cruise in April, which is
Yeah.
another great way to support Mark because he's such an incredible voice. And actually, the thing is, if GB News had just stood by Mark,
Oh, yeah.
just hadn't given in, hadn't tried the appeasement strategy with Ofcom, the Ofcommunists, we might all be in a better place now, right?
I mean, it might be a strong channel with me, you, Lawrence, Mark, and other people might still be there, having hard conversations, voicing opinions that people want to be heard, instead of just having these vapid, empty shells that are very afraid to say anything anymore and trying to be a bit cheesy and funny instead of having the hard conversations. It might have been the thing that you and I hoped it would be from the beginning if they'd have just stuck by Mark Stein, but they did not have the kahunas.
Yeah, it was for a period when Mark was there, a really strong channel. We were doing really daring, fascinating things. And I think in a large part that was because of him, because he showed people like me, okay, we can be really brave here. This is an exciting platform. But of course, as is always the case, he was muzzled. Okay, number 7 on the list of Greatest Britons of 2024. Let's reveal who the Outspoken family have chosen. Oh, and that is a good choice. Sir Alan Bates. And actually, that's probably one of the few knighthoods I actually agree with Calvin in recent months, because he put his whole life on the line really to fight for the rights of the post office workers. I still think it's a great shame that it took a TV drama to really properly crystallize just what had been done to the post office masters. But Sir Alan Bates really was behind so much of it, Calvin.
Oh yeah, I mean the bad guys like Paul Venables and the politicians and all of that got exposed because of this documentary, and he was one of the few people fighting the good fight for all of that time to get it out, to get the conversation aired, and to get justice for the people that were owed it. But I mean, just this month we've had some news that Royal Mail is going to be completely sold off now to foreigners. Like the last part of that British heritage, 508 years is down the pan. It feels like the country is being sold off bit by bit. And of course, the people who were involved in this situation were harmed. Like people were sold off, and now the institution itself is being sold. It's all so sad. Like the nickel and diming our country. To what end? Why? Because they don't believe in it anymore. There are many of us that still do believe in our country. Perhaps those kinds of people should be put at the reins instead.
Yeah,
But
very
yes,
good point.
it's good to see a knighthood go to someone who deserves it for once, rather than a pat on the back for someone who's been helping behind the scenes in politics or something shady for a while.
Well, indeed. And if he thought that if the establishment thought, sorry, that it was going to muzzle him, they were wrong. Because as soon as he was knighted, and there we see it, a very special day with Princess Anne, as soon as that happened, Calvin, he immediately attacked the Labour government. So it showed that a knighthood would not buy his silence. Okay,
Respect.
let's reveal number 6 on the list of the Greatest Britons of 2024 this Christmas Day. Oh, and
Okay.
another former colleague of ours, Father Calvin, Lee Anderson, who, of course, became Reform UK's first MP and was then re-elected. So this is a guy, actually, I think his political journey is really interesting, isn't it? Labour guy. Strong Labour guy. He was a miner. He was the working class Labour kid who was attracted to the Conservative Party through Boris Johnson and Brexit. But when he spoke too many truths about the Islamification of London and what Sadiq Khan has done to the capital city, it was only Reform UK that would welcome him. And I think the loss of Lee Anderson to the Conservative Party was a mistake that they will come to root. Maybe even a historic mistake, Calvin.
Oh yeah, I've got a lot of time for Lee Anderson because he's just real. Like what you see is what you get. He's a genuine person. My father's over for Christmas at the moment, and I think Lee and my father knew each other growing up because he's from my neck of the woods, of course. Ashfield is the place where I had my first job at 13 years old. It's just down the road from Mansfield, where I was born and raised. But the way Lee speaks is exactly how my father and most of my family speak. It's that it's just saying what they think. And I don't just mean the accent. I mean, what they feel is what you will hear. So you know exactly where you stand with a person like Lee. And so when he came over to GB News, I'm like, this is great. This is good for us. This is good for the public conversation. When he got elected with Reform, I thought, okay, great. So I don't necessarily trust Richard and Nigel on all things, but at least they've got someone with some grit to pull them onto the right path. And it is a shame that the Conservatives couldn't hack him, but he's uncouth to them, right? He speaks truth that they would rather talk around rather than about. And so someone like Lee would never really fit in with the Conservatives. And I campaigned with him on Brexit as well, back before it was Reform, when it was the Brexit Party, and that was always good. He was always willing to put the hard work in, and I respect people like that.
Yeah, I think it was the end of the Conservative Party, actually, when they decided to throw Lee Anderson under the bus. And of course, that even made him deputy chair of the party. But of course, in the end, you're right, they're snobs. And that is a fundamental issue, actually, with a lot of what we discuss. There's a huge snobbery. There's a snobbery around Tommy Robinson, of course, who is behind bars this Christmas Day, because you're allowed to say certain things if you have a posh voice, like Douglas Murray. And by the way, Douglas is a friend. I think it's absolutely brilliant that Douglas Murray is allowed to speak. But if you've got a working class voice like Tommy Robinson, no, we're going to lock you up. So I think Lee Anderson, I mean, I remember when Lee first came to public consciousness, actually was refusing to back the England football team because they took the knee for Black Lives Matter. Well, who was right on that? And at the time, the whole establishment came down on Lee Anderson with a ton of bricks. Okay, we're into the top 5. Calvin, this is very exciting. Top 5 of the greatest Britons of 2024. Let's go. Well, okay, this is the ultimate honorary award, right? We can claim him, can we, because of his Scottish heritage? Yes, we can. Get it on.
I love that he's in the top 5. I wish he was higher.
He is a Scot. He's a Scot. He owns a golf club. He's got the Scottish heritage, so we're not even going to call it honorary, right?
No.
I mean, Calvin,
what he's done fixing America, he could run for Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. He has the heritage. It's a possibility.
And he's only got one more term, doesn't he, in America?
Yeah. I mean, he's getting a bit old now, so it's probably not a possibility. But we need a Trump in Britain, and we don't have a Trump. And people keep putting hope on Farage. Farage isn't our Trump. Maybe our Trump will rise up over the next 5 years. We've got, 4 years now. We've still got a while to go. But we need someone that has and what Trump has. It's very much like what we were just talking about with Lee Anderson, right? And that Trump is so big that he's able to just speak the truth and say what he thinks. And if people don't like him for it, he doesn't really care. And the snobs can't really hold him down because he's already bigger than that. They want to come to his golf clubs. They want to come to his Mar-a-Lago. They want to be around his. He is bigger than the establishment. So the snobs can't really do anything about him. And so that's why he's been such a success, because he's a massive patriot. He loves his country, believes in his country, wants it to be better. He's the only president in living memory that's not taken a salary, and he's not doing it again for the next term, which starts in a few days. And that's a wonderful thing, because so many politicians get in it for their career or to get rich, or they might have that a will to change things as well, but it's never the full thing. For him, he just wants to fix his country, wants to make America great again. Who can be against that?
Absolutely. And Calvin, I think when you think about his year, it is particularly extraordinary, right? Because I just want to show a couple of those iconic images that will go down in history. So, of course, it started with the mugshot. And they thought they'd got him, didn't they, Calvin? Finally, after years of lies about the Russia hoax and all of that rubbish, they thought they had got him. But in fact, what Trump said was no. I'm going to lean into this. And it became the most famous mugshot in history.
It was epic, wasn't it? It became an icon. because they thought we've persecuted him, we're going to prosecute him, and he'll be humiliated when we release his mugshot. His mugshot went out, and it was on the walls and T-shirts of people up and down the United States, in fact, around the world. It became the first image of many images, actually, that he is probably. He's up there not just the top 5 greatest Brits of this year. He's up there in the top 5 greatest US presidents. There are so many key moments. I'm sure you've got some of them to come up. So many key moments of his that have been outstanding, iconic, historic moments in this year alone.
Oh yeah.
So who knows
I mean, look, Calvin, the obvious one, and
right.
This is not just the photo of the year, Calvin. It is one of the photos of the century. And he won the election at this point, didn't he? There was absolutely no doubt after this moment that he had won the election, because that message to fight, fight, fight was just completely extraordinary. But then there are other iconic images.
Well, before you move on, because that one's so important. Like they tried to prosecute him and persecute him, impeach him, and then they tried to kill him. And when I say them, I'm being broad in terms of people that dislike him. But they tried to kill him, and his response, that human response, could have been many, many things. He could have run off. He could have said to his agents, "Get me out of here." He could have quit. He could have done all kinds of things. But he stood up and he said, "Fight, fight, fight." And that photograph will be in history books. Not anytime soon, but in a couple of generations, that photograph will be in history books, and people will remember the strong president who cared about the fight and cared about his people. The reason it won't be in history books anytime soon is because the people that write those books are still liberals. And the liberals are, that image that you've got up there, it's still difficult to find it now. That's insane. If you try to Google assassination attempt of president, Google have tried to suppress the image, and mainstream media tried to suppress the story. They were saying things like, well, what happened was it was shrapnel that hit his ear, or this and that. Like they're lying. There's misinformation, there's disinformation, all the words that they throw out there all the time. They're still doing it today, and we all witnessed it firsthand. And so that's woken a lot of people up to the mass hysteria of the mainstream media on the left, as well as the politicians on the left. Because you and I both know, if anyone took a pop at Kamala or Joe Biden or Tim Walz, that would have been the entire story for the rest of the campaign. There would have been no other conversation other than assassination attempt. They wanted to kill, assassination attempt. With Donald Trump, it was a few hours and it was gone.
Exactly.
It was buried.
Let's just forget it. But the thing is, Calvin, because we're in the social media age and because the mainstream media is on its deathbed, actually this became the most iconic campaign, I would argue, since JFK.
Oh, yeah.
In the 60s. And I just wanted to show 2 of my favorite images. Because I'm a former McDonald's worker, Calvin, this one was particularly special to me. Yeah. And you know what? I used to work at the Fry Vat for hours and hours a day. And I mean this, and I have said it for my entire life, even though I haven't worked at McDonald's now for, say, 20 years. My job at McDonald's was the hardest job I ever had. Standing behind that Fry Vat for 8 hours, you'd have to go to the back in the freezer, get out the big vat of fat, which was really, really heavy, bring it over, tip it in to the oil, get splattered, you'd be sweating in a really uncomfortable uniform. Honestly, hardest job I've ever done. So I just have the utmost respect for people who work at McDonald's. And then, of course, he took out the rubbish. And that was just so brilliant, both metaphorically and in terms of the imagery. So, yes, he definitely deserves it. And I think we're absolutely fine to claim Donald Trump.
And I've still got his box of Tic Tacs here. These are Donald Trump's Tic Tacs.
Because, of course, Calvin, you met him this year, right?
I did indeed. I had a couple of chats with him, and I spoke at his event, and it was the highlight of my year. The guy was very humble, very generous with his time, and charitable, and had a conversation. And actually, it enthused me. And again, it's one of the reasons I believe that I'm in the right place at the right time in this country. This is going to be a new golden age of America, and I'm so pleased to be here to witness it firsthand.
Well, that's when I was like, okay, this guy's living the American dream. Look at that.
What a man.
Love it. Okay, so let's move on in the countdown. Number 4 of our Greatest Britons of 2024. Calvin and I don't know the results. This is chosen by the Outspoken audience. Let's take a look. and of course voted for by the people in the Outspoken Club.
Oh, Alison.
Good friend of mine, absolutely wonderful woman, Alison Pearson. I'm sure you know her by now, star columnist at the Daily Telegraph, free speech campaigner, someone who has been on the right side of every issue, especially one of the only people in the mainstream media who was brave enough to speak up against the COVID madness, the lockdowns, trans insanity. And this year, Calvin, she got a visit from the police because of a post on X, a tweet, and it sparked a national and international outcry.
Yeah, Alison Pearson is my favourite at the Telegraph. The Telegraph is a paper that I used to write for almost daily at one point, and I used to love them. And they've veered massively to the left, with the rest of the Overton
As has
window.
all the MSM,
Yeah, but Alison Pearson is one person that has stayed smack bang where she's always been, on the side of truth, righteousness, and justice. And she was visited for it. They came for her for it. And it's a great shame. The way they treated her was disgusting. You know, a renowned journalist with many, many years of professional reporting, and they treated her like she was scum on the bottom of their shoes, like she was some kind of online criminal. And that just goes to show that they are on the wrong side, and she has always been on the right side. And I'm so glad. All these people we're seeing, they're all vindicated, aren't they?
Totally vindicated. Absolutely are. Okay, Calvin Robinson, stand by, because it is the special Christmas edition of Outspoken, and we will in just one moment be counting down the top 3 Greatest Britons of 2024. So stand by for that. But first, I love the holidays, as you can tell in my ABBA Christmas jumper. This is my favourite time of year in so many ways, but it can be really demanding, right? The past few weeks have involved going to events and dinners and looking for gifts and then planning for today itself. So every year, I know personally I tend to burn out quicker than the last, which might have something to do with getting older. But this year, I don't plan to burn out at all, because getting older is inevitable, but feeling older isn't. As we get older, our body's ability to create energy declines, but recent scientific discoveries have found we can actually increase our energy levels in our cells by taking something called NMN. NMN has been shown to increase energy and endurance, activate our body's ability to burn fat, enhance mental function and health, improve blood pressure, regulate blood sugar levels, and support many other health markers. Finding high-quality pure NMN is hard, so I use Verso. They conduct third-party testing for each batch produced to guarantee you get what you pay for. It contains the highest quality NMN and other research-backed ingredients that have been shown to increase energy levels and slow down aging. After taking Cellbean for some time, I feel like a younger version of myself. I've noticed more energy, enhanced endurance, improved cognition, fat loss, better sleep, and if I do get a cold, I recover faster. So just click the link in the description on YouTube and Rumble, or head on over to buy.ver.so/outspoken and use the coupon code outspoken at checkout to save 15% on your first order. I'll just repeat the address: www.buy.ver.so/outspoken and use the coupon code outspoken. But now, back to the show. We return to the countdown of our Greatest Britons of 2024 as chosen by the Outspoken community. Father Calvin Robinson is with me. We have absolutely no idea of who you have decided to put in the top 3. So let's reveal it for the first time. In bronze position as the Greatest Briton for 2024, it's Nigel Farage.
Of course.
And Father Calvin, I'm very happy about this. You might be in two minds.
Again, it's good that he gives people someone to hope could change things. People need I'm not sure he is inspiration. People think he is something that he's not. Nigel Farage cares about Nigel Farage. If that means his career and his ambitions align with the country, then he's a good thing for us. And he is a workhorse and he can make a difference. If those things ever do not align, then we're all in trouble. I'm trying to think of positive things to say about it. He had a good show. His show was great. He's a great broadcaster.
Do you know what? I have a lot of hope in Nigel. I have a lot of hope in Nigel. I think he has been right on all the issues. And I think his heart, I know where this guy's heart is at. Now, I know, Calvin, a lot of people, and I understand,
Damn, you
and as
can't
I
say he's
say,
been right on all the issues. He
I'm a
backed Tony
critical friend.
Blair in the vaccines.
Well, I would say, I guess what I'm saying is that when people have criticized him this year, and by the way, I've done it myself, and I will be a critical friend of reform. But for example, on the mass deportation issue, on the demography issue, and also vaccines, actually, when I say I know where Nigel's heart is, I genuinely do, because I've had these discussions with him. Now, you can say, and it is a valid criticism, Calvin, to say, well, why not say it publicly? Why not go as far publicly as you might privately? I think a lot of it, Calvin, is to do with playing it safe and attempting to win over the mainstream media. Now, I don't necessarily think that's a strategy that's going to work, but it's a strategy. Do you see what I mean?
Is it possible
to win over the mainstream media? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. But I guess we have a long electoral cycle, right? We have.
And do we need someone who's going to play it safe, or do we need someone who's going to be a British Trump?
Well, I just don't know what other option we have at this point.
This is the problem.
And I think, and I think, as the great June Slater says, sometimes you just have to back the best you've got. And the reason why I say is that I know in his heart Nigel is right on these issues, is that I would say he is absolutely not revealing all of his cards as yet. And there will be much more to come. There's a long electoral cycle here. But in terms of the strategy with the mainstream media, I hope that changes. And we did see some hints of it changing at the end of last year, Calvin, for example, when he walked out of the interview with Sly News, for example. I would like to see more of that. I think your message is right to Farage. Be more Trump in 2025. But okay, who's the runner-up? Who's got the silver medal of the Greatest Britons of 2024, according to the Outspoken audience? Here's the reveal.
Okay.
With an American flag. But Elon Musk, we claim him as an honorary Brit because, of course, as we just saw, Calvin, he's taking a lot of interest in British politics. And in fact, Calvin, he was so helpful, especially for people like me, over the course, for example, of the cover-up of the Southport massacre earlier this year, because he allowed us to broadcast the truth on X. He was calling out the terrible nature of two-tier Keir Starmer on X. So in fact, I would say this is a guy who has done a huge amount for the United Kingdom.
Oh, massively. And he's not a conservative. I don't think he's a Christian. So my political and spiritual views don't align with his on everything. But his libertarian worldview means that he believes in free speech. And that's so important for everything that we do. And so when he buys out Twitter and rebrands it as X and makes it the home of free speech, he gives us all a platform to voice our opinions and to spread the truth when the establishment wants to control the narrative at every single angle. So he has been instrumental in helping the United Kingdom and pretty much everyone else around the world who has access to X. And then, of course, his collaboration with President Donald J. Trump means that he's going to bring efficiency to the US government. And if we could have someone like that in the UK too, that would be amazing. No one's really changed the infrastructure of the United Kingdom government and the systems around it since Tony Blair. Tony Blair shaped it in his image, and the Conservatives were afraid of doing anything to compromise that. But imagine if we had someone in Nigel Farage's Reform Party that said, look, this is what we're going to do to drain the swamp. You know, this is because otherwise, even if someone like Farage and Reform got in, they could say whatever they want. The Home Office wouldn't let them do mass deportations. The Foreign Office wouldn't let them do mass deportations. Like all of the civil service would be against them, and mechanisms of government would be against them. So we need someone like Elon Musk to come into the United Kingdom too and say, look, this is what you need to do. You know, Dominic Cummings, for all his faults, was going to do this. He was going to change the shape of the UK infrastructure. We need someone bold enough to do that. And Elon looks like he's flirting with the idea of helping us out.
Yes, he is. He is indeed. And you know I'm a big fan. Thank you very much, Elon Musk. He actually won my first ever countdown of the 50 biggest freedom fighters in the world earlier this year. And he was very grateful for that too, which was exciting for me. Okay, Calvin, number one greatest Briton of 2024. I am certain I know who this is. Are you?
No, I've no idea.
Okay, go on. Take a punt. Who's yours?
Genuinely. Oh, I can't. We've had so many great ones. Who's not been on the list that really should be on the
Okay,
list?
you are gonna when I am convinced I know. I am convinced I know, and if it is who I think, you're gonna be. Oh, I get it. I get it. I would say though, I am surprised that King Charles is not on the list. That's
Really?
surprised me. Yes, because of not to do with the political thing, but just to do with the fact that our monarch this year was diagnosed with really bad cancer
Yeah,
and he continued his duties. And for me, I thought that was incredible,
it's true.
actually, because
But I mean,
that's what royal life is about, isn't it? It is you continue your duties, and he did. And I thought he was a great inspiration, actually, the way that he
that's a
dealt
good
with that
point. And for most
diagnosis.
parts of the year, he wasn't expected to live out the year. So to carry on working at the way that, at the pace that he has is quite something. It's stoicism of the old-fashioned sort, isn't it?
Big time. Okay, so if you want to take part in our conversations on the Dan Wootton Outspoken Club, here's how you do so. Just head to my X page at Dan Wootton, and you will see the invitation to the Dan Wootton Outspoken Club. And as I say, a huge thank you to Michael, to Karen Hankey, to Anna Island, to Darren Donaldson, who managed the club and who did so, by the way, for 6 months when I wasn't able to say a thing, but it was still the most sound place on the internet. So I am so grateful for them. Let's reveal the greatest Briton of 2024. Yeah, I knew it.
Okay.
And I completely agree. I completely agree. Catherine, the Princess of Wales,
Yeah.
because it was far more than what King Charles had to deal with, Father Calvin, given that for the most hysterical period, she was subjected to vicious and untrue lies about her life, about her marriage, about her safety, about whether she was even alive by
Mm,
cretinous individuals. A lot of them part of the Sussex Squad, people like Stephen Colbert. And the way that she dealt with that with such class and such dignity, given that we now know she had experienced a cancer diagnosis, I thought was phenomenal. And her respect and the love that the British people have for her, not just the British people, actually, people around the globe, I believe has only increased.
yeah, you're right. She was going through something as a person, and her family were going through it with her, and she should have been given the space to recover and to heal. And instead, they forced her hand. They made her show herself. They basically said, "Prove you're still alive. We don't believe you." It was horrible to witness. And she had the inner strength to power on through that and go to public events before she was supposed to be going to them. And she's another one that's been working despite things that have been going on in her life and in her health and in her family. And so, yeah, I think well done to Princess Kate for that. She's earned a lot of respect from British people this year.
Indeed, she has. Indeed, she has. All right, Father Calvin Robinson, what a year it has been. Thank you so much for all of your support, for being part of Outspoken. And I hope you have a wonderful start to 2025. We will speak in the new year, Calvin. Thank you and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas and have a happy new year.
And thank you so much for watching today. Thank you for making Catherine, the Princess of Wales, our greatest Briton of 2024. The best way you can support Outspoken is by subscribing to a monthly membership on Substack, www.outspoken.live. It's a safe space, free of censorship. It means I can get around the big tech censorship that exists. And all you have to do is enter your email address. It is completely free. Although if you do want to sign up for a monthly paid membership, of course, I would be grateful and it could be a little Christmas present to yourself. But no, in all seriousness, please just sign up. I know how difficult times are, but this is a way for us to have a direct connection. Now, we're back, Boxing Day. 5 p.m. UK time, midday Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Have a wonderful Christmas. Thank you so much for your support of Outspoken. And more than ever, I mean it when I say I promise to keep fighting for you.